Hi, everybody, and welcome to the FBOMB Global Flash Reading. And tonight it really is global. We have people from various continents, and it's going to be really, really fun. My name is Francine Witte, and I'm here in New York City, trapped in a fake bookstore behind me. So I thought I would start, being that Sunday is Mother's Day. And it's also, today is my parents', what would have been my parents' gazillionth anniversary. I don't even, maybe 75, I don't know. But anyway, so I thought I would read a poem to start. I always like to start off just to warm up the airwaves so that no one has to, that awful spot of going first. So I'm going to read a poem about my parents eating each other. I think of my mother when youth was her best accessory, when she's standing on the dance floor, beautiful and alone. She is waiting there in black and white, the way I have seen her in photographs. Right about now, my father comes in, nervous and white-faced as the moon. Of course, he too is posed, his better side pushed forward in my mind. Only this time, there is something I haven't seen before. Maybe it's the August heat that is making him sweat, or the curve of my mother's right hip as she stands there, swaying in place. He is wearing the look of a man who's convinced he may never think straight again, dumbstruck until the music thuds him on the back like an older brother when he takes that first step towards her, and I am about to begin. Well, thank you. So we're all warmed up now, ready to go. We have a really, really good lineup for you folks tonight. As I said, we have people from all over the globe, and I see some people all over the globe here in the Zoom room. Welcome. Thank you for staying up late, if that's the situation. I'd like to start off with my co-host for the thing that I do, the Prose Garden, the lovely Meg Pokrass. Meg Pokrass is the author of 9 collections, most recently First Law of Holes, new and selected from Zank Books in 2024. Her work has been published in New England Review, Electric Literature, Lit Hub, and many other places. She lives in rainy Scotland. Meg Pokrass.
Thank you so much, Francine. Hi, everybody. I'm gonna, my voice has been doing weird things, so darn it, it's doing it now. I'm sorry for any weird voice qualities that you hear tonight. Anyway, I'm going to be reading a story from The First Law of Holes, my book from the Zank Books. And this story is called, it's called Her Own Music. Her Own Music. After her marriage blew up, Jane's therapist suggested she join. This is horrible. I don't know if it's allergies. Sorry, you guys. After her marriage blew up, Jane's therapist suggested she join an I Am class so she could hang out with other shells of their former selves. She attended her first I Am workshop, which was really an unorganized support group with dancing afterwards. Jane saw that for most of these people, deep into middle age, music had become a functionality balm, a way to get through the next hour. That and pumping Visine into their bloodshot, sleepless eyes. One member started with the Visine, and it began a domino effect, nearly choreographed. Fiercely addicted to their iPods, the I Am members shivered or growled when she attempted to converse. Worse, the men who tried to talk to her after the get-together had mange or fleas. They scratched at themselves nervously, and they stuttered. When Jane dragged herself home alone, she felt desperate for a smoke, had nothing left. If she were a kid, she would smoke oregano and pretend it was grass, and it would feel wonderful. Instead, she turned on her own music. Jane asked Tarzan what he was wearing. He said nothing. She said that she was wearing nothing as well, and that her name was Jane. Good, he said. Let's think about something now, Jane said. She told him to imagine that they were both in a hot tub and it was very comfortable and warm. Jane could hear a dog barking through the phone, and clearly the man named Tarzan was chewing an apple or a sandwich. There was the sound of a toilet flushing. So, your cock is just floating like a pontoon boat near me, she said, and then, well, she waited for him to chime in to say something about Jane's wet tits gleaming under the full rising moon or something. So it's just floating and I'm getting real excited and all, Jane said. She could no longer hear chewing and the dog had stopped barking. She didn't hear anyone breathing, and for a moment she worried that he might have choked to death. You okay? She asked. Yeah, why? Tarzan said. Oh, okay, and so good, Jane said. She was not naked, but she didn't need to tell him that she was really wearing comfy new pajamas. She needed to cut the tag off the collar. Could feel just a tiny little scratching feeling at the back of her neck, like a flea. Jane hired a man from Craigslist named Paul to clean the pool area and remove the bees from the water. She liked Paul's ass, the way his jeans would bunch from all he was bringing. She really needed to commit to eating red tuna sushi for the next 3 weeks, lunch and dinner. There were ways to fill days that had nothing to do with fatty food. There was also a bronze-faced man named Ha Ha. Sounded like a joke, but wasn't. The man said he'd had a terrible afternoon, and she had given him the opportunity to accompany her for a seaweed salad. She told him it was on her, and sipping Dragonwell tea with him, she asked about the name Ha Ha. He said he'd always been a comedian. Paul was only good at scooping bees out of a pool, and she couldn't stop wanting to eat seaweed with the olive-skinned funny man. At night, after their smoke, nothing would stop Ha Ha's voice, all sucky, burrowing in and out of her fleshy dream and her unstained kimono. In Jane's dream, she was serving tea to young men with shiny hair. In the real world, Ha Ha's voice lived off the blood he sucked from her shins, calves, and her bottom. A tick can draw blood from a person in an ape suit. So hungry, so smart. Ha Ha's life kept growing. He had hundreds of friends just a click away. He told Jane he was popular because he said things of importance to people. That's how you collect friends, he said, real followers. When Jane closed her eyes, telephones appeared. They were the only way to connect. She would dial random numbers and say, "Can you hear me? Do you know who I am?" Once a 7 bloomed on her fingers, and she dialed 7s and got a busy signal. 5s felt hungry, maybe 5s ate children, so she avoided them. 8s were delightful, though, untrustworthy. They used Listerine. Every number had a little problem, and she didn't have anyone but Ha Ha, the size of a dot. Even in her dream, his part of the story needed work, felt false, unfinished. She blamed herself. She lived to please. She used his deodorant, his lotions. He said he was falling for her every time they fucked. He said it over and over. Jane is sexy, but she's a real mess. There was one exit, one way to make him happy. A year and 1 day later, Jane met Bill. He was sunning in the yard next door, must have moved into the rental. She had discovered nettle plants growing and needed to destroy them before things went further. Jane had developed a little problem with anything new in general since Ha Ha vanished. There was always a loyalty factor, they say, like thread hanging from your skirt or pocket lint. Where does it come from? Jane tried not to drag Ha Ha's scent behind her everywhere she walked, but somehow she had started tripping. Once or twice a day, she would trip on invisible rocks or ruts in the sidewalk, undetectable upon later inspection. She would go back like a detective and stare at the place where she tripped to figure out how it could have happened again. Jane's words felt shy. She wanted to say hello across the fence, casually. The neighbor looked sad, sunbathing and reading, as though he were nothing better than an apparition, as if he didn't deserve to be spoken to. Jane understood. This man had large, dark glasses and a bald head. Jane walked over to the fence, cleared her throat, and said, "Hello there." He had his own music. In fact, she thought she saw the lonely white wires dripping from his ears. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Meg, and thank you for being with us tonight, all the way from Scotland. Uh, yeah, well, and I love your Aurora Borealis back behind you.
Yeah, because we both know I've never actually seen it, even though I live in the most perfect place to see it and I miss it. I missed
Yes,
it for like so many years. So now I
yes.
just like, hey, here it is.
Right. So I'm in a fake bookstore and you're in a fake Aurora Borealis. So that's good. That's good. Well, thank you so much, Meg Pokrass. Lovely to see you as
Thank you so
always,
much for having me, Francine. Thank you so much for inviting me.
of course. Okay, next we're going to hear from Mileva Anastasiadou, who is a neurologist from Athens, Greece, and the author of Christmas People and We Fade with Time. Her work has been selected for the Best Microfiction Anthology 2024 and Wigleaf Top 50 and can be found in many journals. She is the flash fiction editor of Blood Plus Honey and the Argyle Literary Magazine. Mileva Anastasiadou.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Really happy to be here. Francine, congratulations again for your Oscar Prize. That is huge. And thank you for having me. I will be reading Cartoon People from Blood and Honey. One Piece. Um, it's all fun and games and laughter in cartoons. No one talks, no one hurts, no one dies. Hearts aren't broken, but even when they aren't shattered. But even when they are, the pieces are glued back together and hearts beat loud again. They're as good as new. Things are simple in cartoons. My shrink doesn't write, but if she did, she'd write stories because that's what she does best. It's intellectualizing things. She analyzes things, cuts them into tiny pieces, then puts them back together and says, "Ha, that's how it works." And I nod because I find it soothing to know how things work. I ask what went wrong because she's the expert and she shrugs. She says, "Nothing. Like my divorce isn't important, but it is. I didn't come here to talk nonsense. I want her help to fix things." I wanted to talk and he didn't. He'd talk for a while, then he'd stop. I asked about how things had been at work. He said, "Fine," and turned on the TV and stared at the screen. "Anything specific?" I asked, because I needed him to open up and I needed to open up too. "You can only talk to me about this fucking show," he said. He was watching cartoons for fuck's sake. My shrink wonders if it's the language barrier. "English must be your second language," she says, and I shrug. I don't answer because I don't want to lie, but I can't tell the truth either. She won't get it if I say that Greek isn't my native tongue either, that I only speak silence fluently and all other languages are exhausting. I make mistakes all the time. My husband talks in silence too, like in cartoons. Cartoon people don't talk much, but they make noises. They argue, but words don't matter. They speak and we don't hear them. They speak in words that don't make sense, and what they say doesn't matter because all that matters is who wins. Then comes a new episode, and all is repeated over and over, and the show runs endlessly, but we keep on watching and we're never bored. Language is never a problem in cartoons. My shrink remains silent most of the time. "I've seen it in movies," I tell her. "People lose everything, but once they get better, they get everything back." She says this happens only in movies. She stares at the wall, then back at me. "This doesn't work," she says. "What doesn't work?" I ask. "This negotiation thing," she says, and makes a gesture like it is obvious. "It's a stage through grief, and we made movies about it because we really want it to work, only it doesn't, not in real life." I watched Tom and Jerry with him. I'm now Tom and he's Jerry, but it wasn't always like that. He used to be after me when we first met, and that was the best part of my life. But things changed. Once I gave in, he lost interest. I started chasing him, only I wasn't fast enough. I never got him, but my best friend did, and now they have started a new life together. Things don't change in cartoons. Tom has been chasing Jerry since forever. My shrink does her best, but she's tired. "There's some kind of subtle wisdom in cartoons, but it's not what I think it is," she claims. She says I don't miss him, I miss the game. "What game?" I ask. She rolls her eyes as if I'm a lost case. "You always miss everything. You even miss the characters from books you didn't even like," she says. and she spits out the words like I exhausted her, but then takes a big breath. She says that love is beautiful despite heartbreak, not because of it. Like life is beautiful despite hardship, not because of it. I suffer, therefore I am, I think, but I don't speak. I heard that, she says. My shrink claims I should move on, like what cartoon people do in cartoons. In cartoons, no one gets hurt. But even when they do, they don't die. But even when they die, they come alive again. A bomb explodes in your face, a train runs over you, or you fall off a cliff. But things never end in disaster. In cartoons, you get angry when bad things happen, but you shake death off of you and you start over. Thank you.
That was great, Mileva. Yeah, it's true how nobody dies in cartoons. It just like you have one dog, then you have two dogs. That's all.
Yeah.
So Mileva Anastasiadou, and what time is it there where you are in Mileva?
It's 1:22 in the morning.
Yeah. Well, thank you for
Nice.
being here with us, really. And Meg,
It was an honor and a pleasure.
thank you. Appreciate it. We've, like I said, we've got some wonderful, wonderful readers, and we also have some wonderful people, flash writers, like star-studded flash writers here in our Zoom room. We have Jennifer Maloney's, V. Sessling, Bill Merkley, Claudia Monpere, Deanna Benjamin, Jeff Harvey, Nad Gosh. I mean, this is amazing, right? Patricia Badar, Deborah Seher, Hugh Baim Steinberg, Kevin Jacobs, Margot Mertz, Sumitra Singham, Beth Sherman, Ilan Barnahama, and Jerome Fahey. Amazing, amazing group of people. Welcome and thank you for being here tonight with us. Really, we really appreciate it. Okay, next, we'll move on to Kik Lodge, who is a short fiction writer from Devon, England, but she lives in Lyon, France. Lyon, France, I think, Lyon, France, with a menagerie of pigs, cats, and rabbit. Her week can be found in her work can be found in some lovely journals: the Citron Review, Gone Lawn, Tram Set, Milk Candy Review, Splunk, Bending Genres, and Smoke Run Quarterly, as well as the Best Microfiction 2024 anthology. Her debut flash collection, Scream If You Want To, is out with Alien Buddha Press, and a second collection is forthcoming with Stanchion Books, featuring the artwork of Jerome Fahey, who's here with us in the Zoom room. Okay, Kik Lodge.
Thank you, Francine. No pressure after that long list. Good God.
Right.
Okay. All right. I'm going to read a story called The Bully in My Pillow. The Bully in My Pillow. Just as my eyelids are set to slump, the bully in my pillow says, "You really think it's time for sleeping, you aspiring loser? Think switching off is ever going to switch anything on in that tin can brain of yours? Why haven't you replied to Tim Hammond? Tim Hammond is probably telling his wife over kedgeree how all you do in meetings is nod. Except today, you nodded in the wrong place, didn't you? So you had to develop your stance on brand positioning, mumbling more ers than substance. And tomorrow, he's going to come out with his predictable, we need to talk, just like Cheryl did. Remember Cheryl? Seriously, I say to the bully in my pillow, yes, I remember Cheryl. I turn over on my belly and remember Cheryl. The bully in my pillow is mute for a minute, and I wonder if he's done. I say, I remember the kiss at Ladram Bay when the tide tripped over our trainers and we didn't move. We didn't even feel our toes until we'd stopped kissing. And the bully in my pillow mimics the waves under the silent pull of the moon. I remember when Cheryl said doubt was a turn on, I continue. And the bully in my pillow reemerges with an intercourse moan and says, oh, you were so sexy, wexy with your doubt, weren't you? and I tell him to quit the audio already. I remember the contours of her lips, I say. I could draw them now. And I jiggle my cock out of my boxers. Pray the bully in my pillow is exiting my ears, but he says, Jesus, you're thinking about Cheryl and that time in the applied science section at the library, aren't you? Or has your dirty little mind whipped up that equine woman Bonesy tried to set you up with last Saturday? The one who requires a man with a plan, which is an oxymoron for you, is it not? I pat around for my fleshlight, and little hexagons start to form under my eyelids. The bully in my pillow turns into murmurs until he shouts, taxes, overdraft, 1.5-degree threshold, withering chrysanthemums on your mother's grave, prostate, Tim Hammond. I ball my hands into fists and howl until I'm hoarse. My eyes are pools of stagnant water. I contemplate the earth turning on its axis, the universal creak, the smallest of everything. I tug the pillow out from behind my head and wrap my arms around it. Feel the goose feather reprieve. Shh, you little shit, I say. Shh. Thank you.
Beautiful reading, Kik. Very dramatic, very expressive, beautiful. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, Kik Lodge. Next, we're going to hear from Swetha Amit. Swetha Amit is a California-based writer and author of 3 chapbooks. Her work appears in Had, Ghost Parachute, South Florida Poetry Journal, Cream City Review, Oyez Review, and others. A member of the Writers Grotto, her stories have been nominated for the Pushcart Prize, Best of the Net, and Best Small Fiction. Swetha Amit.
Thank you, Francine. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Your support really means a lot. So today I'm going to be reading a piece called The Fire, which emerged at a Smoke Long quarterly workshop, and it was published in a journal called Monkey Bicycle 2 months ago. The Fire. When I got home from work, I found Ma running out of the front door, naked and dripping wet. The bathroom's on fire, she screamed, gripping my hand like a child. Her breathing was heavy, her hair was tangled, and water droplets ran down her sagging breast and stomach. Her face was ghostly, as pale as the fading white walls of the house. There is no fire, Ma, I told her kindly. I took off my jacket and draped it over her. Yesterday, she left the house without her blouse and called out to passers-by on the streets of Palo Alto, asking them to contact the fire department. Last week, while I was at work, she left the front door open, wandered around the backyard, and ventured into the neighbor's garden, wearing only her undergarments. The neighbors initially expressed concern and empathy, noting how grief and trauma can lead people to behave in unusual ways. I sensed a growing impatience when they suggested I hire a caregiver or place her in a nursing home. As a result, I began working from home most days of the week. Ma's strange behavior started 2 months ago, after Grandpa was killed when the wildfires in Napa Valley burnt his house down. The loss of a father and a childhood home being reduced to rubble was more unbearable than Pa leaving us for another woman a few years ago. After the wildfire tragedy, Ma refused to step inside the kitchen and cook, an activity that kept her sane after Pa left. The sight of the flames on the stove resulted in blood-curdling screams. I missed eating her eggplant roast, fried okra, and a sense of sauteed ginger garlic paste that would linger in the kitchen. At first, she isolated herself in her room. A few weeks later, when she decided to leave the house, she forgot to turn off the lights, lock the doors and windows, or shut off the shower in the bathroom. Let's go inside, Ma, I tried to hurry her in. The sky turned a radiant orange, and birds flew back to their nests. Her loud sobs made the sound of cars on the road distant. My jacket fully concealed her upper body and her hips. Her bare legs were still moist, and I could see goosebumps sprinkled on her brown skin. While growing up, Ma never allowed me to wear anything that revealed my arms, cleavage, or legs. She insisted these displays were only for promiscuous girls. My swimsuit felt more like a bodysuit, while the other girls donned bikinis or one pieces. I remember wearing a knee length skirt borrowed from a friend for a school party. Ma grounded me for an entire week. She complained to my friend's mother about her bad influence on me and accused her of giving me drugs. Ma even threatened to report to the cops if she was found with me again. I never saw or spoke to the friend again. Ma changed my school and ensured I focused solely on my grades. She would bake cookies whenever I topped my classes and hugged me tightly. Let's go, I repeated wearily. Ma refused to move. She kept holding on to me. There is no fire inside, I reiterated. She didn't seem to hear me. I wanted to tell her that she was almost nude, and this could even provoke the neighbors to call the cops. I pulled her inside and turned on the lights to dispel the darkness. Ma stood by the door, shivering in my jacket. I grabbed a towel and dried her. The orange sky outside faded to a deep charcoal black, and the towel grew heavy with moisture. Ma's tears soaked in my shirt as she buried her head in my chest. Later, the neighbors lit a bonfire in their backyard. The crackling sound of the flames and smoke sent Ma into a frenzy. She began beating her chest and hollering. I wrapped my arms around her and stroked her head, trying to soothe her. My insides began to gnaw, like some insect was nibbling on my flesh. My heart felt like someone had sliced it with a knife. Outside, a gray smoke from the fire rose until it blended with the pitch black sky. Thank you.
Hypnotic. That was beautiful, Swetha.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us, Swetha Amit. I wanted to, just before I go on, give a little shout out. I see my aunt Miriam Mandel came in. She was having a little trouble getting in before, but that's okay. I just want to mention that my aunt just turned 100 in January. So yeah, so we're always delighted to have her here at the everywhere. Welcome, Aunt Miriam. Okay, next we're going to hear from Sudha Balagopal, who is an Indian American writer whose writing appears in Doric Literary and Fictive Dream, among other journals. In 2024, her novella in Flash, Nose Ornaments, runner-up in the Bath contest, was published by Ad Hoc Fiction, UK. She has had stories included in Best Microfiction, Best Small Fictions. She is the series editor of the Wiggly Top 50. Sudha Balagopal.
Thank you so much, Francine. And I am going to follow with another mother story. Oh, I had no idea. Well, it is Mother's Day.
Appropriate,
Almost, yeah. Where I come from, the house had jasmine bushes that scented the backyard, veiling the odors from our rubbish bins. It's where my sisters screeched with laughter every time I read the lines, "Sing, Mother, sing, can Mother sing, Mother can sing," from the Radiant Reader, because our Ma had the voice of a man where, when Ma answered the phone, callers thought she was Pa who died years ago, and where Ma forced us to drink Ovaltine or Bournvita or Horlicks until we turned 10, 11, 13 and begged for tea, ginger forward, sugar heavy, milk thick. Where I come from, the house had decorative cracks snaking across the bedroom walls, one shaped like the map of Australia, one like the United States, one like Brazil, but none like our state Maharashtra or our country India. It's where my sisters and I giggle whispered that someday we'll travel to far-flung places like New York, Canberra, and London as we huddled under our blankets and listened to distant, static, crackly radio stations, BBC, Voice of America, and Radio Australia, and where we attempted to imitate the different accents, mastering none, making a cachumber of the English language. Where I come from, the house had many nooks and crannies into which we folded ourselves when Ma chased us with a broom to make us complete our homework. It's where we retreated to the downstairs storeroom by the buckets and mops to share secrets and heartbreaks, where Ma caught me one night jumping out of the broken window, dressed in a sequined salwar and high heels to attend a wedding with Rishi, dragged me into the kitchen, triple slapped my cheek, left, right, left, and said, "He's just playing with you," and where I stamped my foot in frustration and screamed, "Any mother is better than you." Where I come from, obedient girls like my older sisters married the men Ma picked. One went to Sydney, the other San Francisco, while I provided fodder for nosy neighbors who likely gossip chattered about me, anointing me as the runaway girl because I fled home after leaving a note by the storeroom window, from where Rishi and I took the night train to anonymous Mumbai to blend in with the multitudes, where after a couple of years, Rishi took off for Dubai with a secretary in his office, while I, scrimp-saved, raised my son alone, longing for Ma, for her Ovaltine, Bournvita, Horlicks, her manly voice, and I called my sister's place in Sydney because Ma had moved there, because I wanted to apologize, only to have my sister tell me, "You're too late." Where I come from, there's no Ma I can hug now. No Ma I can beg for tea. Ginger forward, sugar heavy, milk thick. No Ma I can introduce to my son. It's where there are no screeching sisters, no jasmine bushes, no smelly rubbish bins, no walls with maps of faraway countries, no nooks, no crannies, no storerooms, no mops, no buckets, no broken windows, where the neighborhood's shiny new road signs and imposing multi-storied apartment buildings stand tall like disdainful sentinels, mocking the piece of land that was once our humble abode, and where I sit on the rubble, excavating, sorting, and gathering memories, so I can tuck them inside my heart, carry them to the place I today call home. Thank you.
Beautiful, Sudha. Just such a gorgeous imagery, always. So beautiful. Hey, Sudha Balagopal, thank you for being here with us tonight. And next we are going to hear, oh, and by the way, everybody, all the readers, feel free to put your links in the chat. If you have a website, if you're selling a book, anything at all is fine. Put it in the chat. Next is Mikki Aronoff, who writes tiny bios. Example, Mikki writes tiny stories in New Mexico. Mikki Aronoff.
Thank you, Francine, for inviting me. I am so happy to be here with my Flash family. Just gladdens my heart. I'm going to read one micro called The Puddle of Me that was published by the wonderful Clara McQueen in the wonderful McQueen's Quinterly. The Puddle of Me. It's just my gut, he grunts, staring at me while slathering grape jelly on his toast, then licking the knife, both sides. He's nonchalant like this, Bill is, every time he comes back from the doctor's. I scowl at the purple blob quivering on the white shirt I just finished ironing for him, dab at it with a moistened paper towel. One little suture piece of cake, he adds. Crumbs are sticking to his lips as he glowers. Now don't go leaping out the window. The last few times Bill mumbled, scratchy throat. The last few times Bill mumbled something was just a scratch or a bump or some such, we found ourselves scrambling on long, steep, windy roads to recovery. Left to guess, I always veer to the dark side. Nights I turn and toss in my bed and punch my pillows as I envision Bill's membranes and organs warping or hopping around like fleas. I anticipate resigning my job to mop Bill's brow, to rush sloshing bedpans to the toilet and untangle a Medusa of tubing. I'll be fretting and pacing and moaning over Bill's piling up on the hallway table, the electricity turned off, a foreclosure notice pinned to the door, me resorting to jumping out a window, even though I'm afraid of heights. But this time, I'll conjure myself atop a tall building with lots of glass, the concrete monstrosity housing hedge fund companies and dodgy attorneys. No plummeting from the relative safety of our ramshackle mortgage to the hilt split level brick ranch with its weed studded yard. And when I stand teetering on the ledge of the 34th floor, passersby will gather on the sidewalk below, look up and rub their necks. When I land, they'll grimace and say things like "pity" and "ouch." I'll rise bit by bit from the puddle of me and dust myself off. Then, like in some feel-good group therapy trust building session, I'll close my eyes and let myself tip backwards into the outstretched arms of well-meaning strangers. They'll swaddle me in the finest cotton, carry me home, and spoon feed me soup crowded with dumplings. Thank you.
Mm.
I had a deja vu as soon as I started this that I'd read it before. I hope not.
Oh, it's always okay. It's like people estimate the effect of reading it a second time. Anyway, I love to see movies a second time. I love to hear Flash a second time. Not a problem.
I usually write these down, but
Yes, it was great, and I think the ones a Medusa of tubing. I think that's just a takeaway for all of us. I'll never look at tubing quite the same way. It was wonderful, Mikki. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Next is Riham Adly. And I actually cut her bio down a little bit. So Riham, if you want to put your full bio in the chat afterwards, you can. Riham Adly is an award-winning flash fiction writer from Giza, Egypt. Her work is included in the Best Microfiction 2020 anthology. Her flash fiction has appeared in over 50 journals such as Litro Magazine, Lost Balloon, The Flash Flood, Binging Genres, The Citron Review. Riham's flash fiction collection, Love is Make Believe, was released and published in November 2021 by Clarendon House Publications in the UK. Riham Adly.
It's so exciting to be here and to be reading amongst an amazing audience. Thank you for having me. I'm going to read a triptych previously published in the New Flash Fiction Review. My menu of loss, love, and absence. Mezza for the lonely. Everything is folded up and airy when I'm in love the first time. You walked into my shop with that lonely immigrant look on your face, following the elusive, chocolatey sense of brewing coffee soon to be served in my Arabian Nights demitasse. You stare ominously at the folding chairs and tables, at the wisps of Arabic among the paraphernalia of blonde heads and dark beards. For me, it's like knowing and not knowing a secret that isn't a secret. I wonder if it was me or the mezza's ancestral flavors that sparked your cardboard faith back to life. Simit and baklava. In my post-work haze, I listen to songs about lost letters. And think of lost mothers, hands dancing amidst the mist of finger-tingling sprinkles of cinnamon, walnut, and orange blossom. I imagine her closed eyes as she bites into crackling heavenly layers, but I feel hard on the inside, like a 3-day-old baguette, like those eternal simits left on her grave back home, those hard-to-chew pretzels covered in burned sesame seeds and honeyed smears of grief. Farfouche cake. You bake it when I'm taken away by customer orders and insane night shifts. I bake it when you don't stay for dessert and rush away to your secret. The cake's layered, folded on itself like first loves. It has both of us, like the halting aging of fruits under a crust of icing sugar. It has us both in absence. Thank you.
Oh, that was beautiful, Riham. Folded on itself like first loves. Wow. Beautiful. What a beautiful phrase there. Thank you for being here with us tonight, Riham.
Thank
Riham
you.
Adly. Okay, next we're going to hear from Lucinda Kempe, whose work is forthcoming in Salvage, China Miaville Editor, the Somerset Review, Soflo Pojo, Unbroken Journal, Bull, Does It Have Pockets, Gooseberry Pie, New Flash Fiction Review, and Centaur, among other places. An excerpt of her memoir was shortlisted for the Fish Memoir Prize in April 2021. She lives on Long Island, where she exorcises with words. Lucinda Kempe.
That's still too long. I'm thrilled to be here. What a great, what wonderful, wonderful magical words I'm hearing, and such a nice turnout. I'm going to read two. We'll see. They're both, one's a flash and one's very short. This is Jane and the Arsonist. Jane banged past the kitchen door into the side yard, pulled up an aspidistra leaf from its root, and began stripping its broad stem. Hey, arsonist, what's up? Hey, perverted little girl, what's it look like? Said Finnessy, who'd been bouncing a tennis ball up against the carport door. Where's your maid? Finnessy slung the ball. Smoking up a storm. You want to ignite with me? Said Jane, crossing the street and waving her whip. Finnessy tossed the ball and caught it. Maybe. We could do it at your house. Are you suicidal? Jane looked back across Chestnut Street at the big, ugly house on the corner. What about Madame Pipelines? It's high. Who told you I was perverted? John Adams said you asked him to show you his dick. Well, said Jane, everybody knows you set a fire in your kitchen twice. Who's everybody? Mr. and Mrs. Lime, Ruby Bell, and Mama. He tossed the ball into the yard. Yeah, I guess we could try Pipeline's house, or we could go under your house. My house is too low. Plus, we're too young for that. Too young for what? Fucking. Finn slapped his thighs. You're too much. Jane flushed and trailed the tip of her whip near her dusty shoes. What did you want to do then? He slid past the gate and hit Jane's arm. You're a perverted little girl. Jane swatted him with her whip. I am. They bolted in Jane's yard. Finney made his own whip, whereon they resumed their game, switching each other's calves, caterwauling until the sound of Addie's voice cut them to the quick. Finsey Percy, Mr. Walker's gonna put you in a book that be worse than my lashing. Addie flew across the street like a gaunt raven, tapping a sweet olive branch against her thigh. Mercy, called a shrill voice. You people don't know how to behave. Betty Turley stood on the bluestone gravel, her blondine beehive giving a Nebelung mezzo appearance. Hello, Mrs. Turley, said Adeline, flashing her gorgeous white teeth. Hello, Addie. Can you control these two, or must I call the patrol? I was trying to naps. Naps? Why, certainly, Mrs. Turley. Addie nodded at Finn and Jane. Y'all tots get on inside for lunch here. Mrs. Turley unfolded her arms and clucked. Sorry to disturb your beauty time, ma'am. Mrs. Turley spun around, leaving a trail of face powder. Addie tucked the sweet olive branch under her arm. She waited until Mrs. Turley disappeared. Pretentious trash. Finsey, y'all come in 3. And if I can't find my Zippo today, I'm going to tell Mr. Percy I left it at home. They followed Addie's well-beaten path into the Percy's kitchen for a treat and the afternoon's counterplot. The next day, Betty Turley's Victorian gazebo caught fire and burnt to the ground. Addie, Jane, and Finney were conveniently having a picnic in Audubon Park, and Walker Percy put the whole thing into one of his books. Do I have time for a second one?
Absolutely.
Okay. And this was written in Francine's Prom Papa.
Oh, yay.
Inessa. Where had I bought the hat? And why had I thought it would look dapper? This Cossack ripoff, so unlike the Russian mink hats. God, how I hate Putin. The image of him bare-chested on a horse, like he had a cock as big as that animal, a cock that would choke a horse and choked his wife. If only he'd choked on it himself. Now, wouldn't that be something? I can't go home to Mother Russia. No back in the USSR. No homeland. No village vodka drunk with my uncles and aunts and our family. Just exile. Making believe I was a genuine American gal who liked a libertine life without shackles. Oh, what I'd give to be able to go home. Even if I'd die like Navalny. Even if I'd be gulag like Solzhenitsyn. Even if I'd be muzzled like the press. Even here, it was happening. Mom USSR is tattooed on my skin, congealed in my veins, wetted in my saliva, and colors my every thought through the lens of the red pooling on the basement floor. Blood from Tsar Nicholas II, shot at Yekaterinburg along with his wife and 5 children, shot and then bayoneted, their bodies burned with acid, then unceremoniously dumped down a deserted mine shaft. Oh, how I long for the blood-soaked shores of the USSR. Anything is better than this pale US imitation, like this cheap Ushanka I hate as venomously as Ivan Ilyich hated Praskova Fodorovna before he died. Wing.
Wow, wonderful, Lucinda. It's nice to see what happens with the prompts. Do you remember what the prompt was?
The fur hat.
Okay. Really awesome. That's great.
Thank you.
And Lucinda mentioned my prompt workshops. If you are interested, I don't really advertise them on the on social media, but if you're interested in finding out more, just send me a message at francinewitte.com and I'll tell you all about it. Okay, and that was wonderful. Lucinda Kempe. Nice to have you with us tonight. Next, we're going to hear from Andrea Marcusa. Her writings have appeared for Review, Moon City Review, Milk Candy Review, Citron Review, and others. And these are all great journals to be in. Seriously, all the journals I've been hearing mentioned for everybody were great. She's received recognition in a range of competitions, including Smoke Long, Best Microfiction, Cleaver, Raleigh Review, and is the author of the chapbook, What We Live With Now, which is great, Bottle Cap Press. She's a member of the faculty at the Writer Studio in New York City. Andrea Marcusa.
Thank you. Wow, it's great to be here. Can you hear me okay? Because I stuck
Yes.
my headphones in. Okay.
Yes, you're fine.
I'm going to read two short pieces tonight. One of them was inspired by Meg. Is Meg still here?
She might have, I think she might have signed off. She wasn't feeling well.
Okay. Anyway, this was from a Meg
She'll watch it in the
workshop.
recording. She'll watch it in the recording. Yeah.
Okay. It's called The Last Pair of High Heels. While cleaning our basement, I found a pair of 3-inch patent leather heels resting under papers in a file cabinet. Elegant, expensive, forbidden. My hand shook. I could be arrested. No questions asked. 10 years ago, heels were banned. Men and women in blue jean uniforms with golden age pins rounded up all the heels and skirts and destroyed them. Now we wear government-issued drab green pants, shapeless jackets, gray athletic shoes, double knotted. Before the ban, my fingers sweat holding the shoes. Should I leave them there or try to dispose of them without government cameras recording me? Turning them in is too risky. I could land in jail. I pushed them back under the files and shut the drawer. Before the ban, women wore athletic shoes on their trip to work, then switched into heels at their desks. So did I. My colleague said heels accented her calves despite painful bunions. Back then, skirts were still allowed. I cut a fine figure in mine. My granddaughter doesn't know about heels, skirts, or gowns. All non-regulation clothing and footwear have been deleted from the digital universe. We are forbidden to speak of them. Follow the rules, I tell my daughter. It will keep us safe. Later, while walking in the woods, slender trees rise, their slim trunks like graceful calves and thighs. Branches billow like skirts. I imagine those trees and spiky heels and sleek hose, and remember how we danced at formal weddings in long fitted gowns and satin and rhinestone high heels. In a clearing, I can almost hear us swaying in moonlight with joy and passion. When I was a girl, I owned a doll with a skimpy sequin dress and silver heels on her permanently arched feet. But those shoes never stayed on. And one day I noticed they were lost. So that's the first thing. And the second one is, this just appeared in Moon City Review. And if you were at a reading for Francine's other reading, I've already read it, but I wanted to read it again. So it's called Park Association's Boots and Petticoats Square Dance Party. A couple left their table, stepped onto the makeshift dance floor and bowed. The fiddler tapped his foot, held his instrument high, and the music started. Soon the couple was wheeling about the floor with mastery. The man's red bandana flying, his ancient cowboy boots skipping, her flouncy jean skirt and ruffled peasant blouse flapping. The other patrons stopped their sipping of oaky merlots and craft beers, dabbed their mouths as they do-si-doed, the man's eyes blank as the gray floor beneath them, his face slack. But they strode confidently into a promenade, never missing a beat. They danced like they'd been competing in competitions for decades, as if they practiced sashaying in their sleep, wrote the tune Turkey in the Straw himself. Both were elderly. He had almost a full head of white hair, and she a mass of snowy ringlets. Her sharp blue eyes took in the other guests' stares, the banjo players strumming, the strings of white lights twinkling above. Despite her age and small size, she seemed the kind of woman you wouldn't dare budge in front of in a grocery store line. So opposite the man with his vacant stare, his slightly open mouth, a curl of saliva forming at the corner. But the man's feet knew every move. The couple danced like new lovers who never wanted to part, ignoring the caller when he announced that it was time to trade partners. They danced with such precision and ease, the way geese that fly in perfect symmetry and know exactly how much space to leave between themselves and the next bird to make a perfect V. We were all watching, the bartender who was polishing wine glasses, the caterer who paused with her tray of pigs and blankets and held it to her hip, the man who'd been scrolling his phone for messages, the woman who'd just posed for a photo at her table with her sister and husband visiting from Seattle. Their connection startled us, like an unexpected ray of sun bursting forth from behind a storm cloud after a morning rain. And then the woman, with the expression of a young mother, paused and wiped that man's mouth with a tissue and then tucked a lock of hair behind his ear. Her gaze, like your first boyfriend might have once had for you, regardless of what might happen next. There might be cheating or a broken favorite vase from his drunken rage. But there was that moment when you once lay in his arms, your hearts beating in unison, and there was no one in the world you'd rather be with. Everyone in the hall stared transfixed. Each person that night privately hoping, if it happened to them, that they would be loved just as tenderly and selflessly at the same time praying that their futures wouldn't be that of this failing man in a red bandana, his confusion between sets. Where are we? Why are we here? The sound of his words grating on our ears, pressing our hearts to breaking. But if this was our destiny, how we wanted to be this man, stooped shoulders, fading mind, that red bandana waving like a flag.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Andrea. Andrea
Thank you.
Marcusa. Very nice. We have one final reader, a bonus reader tonight, a new voice. And Andrea had brought him to me. She teaches at the Writer's Studio, and he's just one of your students there. Is that correct, Andrea?
Yes.
And so I don't know if this is his debut reading or one of his first readings, whatever. But anyway, we want to welcome JT. JT is an up-and-coming author with a focus on flash fiction. He has been published prolifically on Twitter.com, including at least 5 viral tweets ripping on the idiosyncrasy of living queer in New York City, the same subject as his stories. He hopes to get published more traditionally once he finally sits down and reopens that browser tab of places to submit. He grew up in South Carolina and works professionally in software development. JT, and you're on mute, JT. There you go.
Hi.
Great.
Thank you
Hi,
for having me.
welcome. Welcome.
I'm just gonna read one piece tonight that's Flash and from my last class, and it's called Mass. He decided he would attend a meeting on the Lower East Side that day, for it had been another tedious weekend of aimlessly reclaimed daylight and he craved the company of other intentful individuals whom were also past the point once potential is diminished rather than actualized through the crucible of the city's nightlife. He had patiently passed his Sunday wandering newly acquainted neighborhoods of New York City with a book in hand, rounding each avenue with a novel idea of who he might become, only to find himself sitting alone in a park, the pages of his Mrs. Dalloway still fresh cut as the flowers she buys herself, watching a group of friends huddled together in last night's clothes share a joint. What might he still have to share, he wondered, and with whom? So he had gone to a hollowed auditorium to hear a very serious man, a recovered addict, recently esquired through sobriety and now respectably redeemed to counsel for a kitchen appliance manufacturer, qualify that none of the enablers the man had called friends had ever represented real relationships, and that upon hearing one of them had passed recently, the man had texted the others to ask if they knew, only to find they did not even recognize the person's name. The man had said, to find sobriety, you have to let go of that part of you that is still with them. As he listened, the man's voice redoubled through the emptied seats, rebounding back to overlap and muffle the very sounds they intended to carry forth, as if they had reached the midpoint of a relay race only to find no one there and then dumbly, confusedly return to lay the baton back at the man's feet. So afterwards at home, delaying the urge to text his dealer once again, he thought of his friends, the whole writhing, fleshy mob of them, probably half nude and fresh with perspiration at just that hour in some stranger's apartment, for afters at the end of a marathon weekend throughout the rehabilitated warehouses of Brooklyn's club scene, wet as if slick with birth, clamoring and mewling over one another for the last beads of milk from the raw red teat of their night. And he wondered about that part of him still caught up in that litter of slippery, glistening bodies. Surely, with all the mornings that had passed between them apart like this one, he could not say he had been a lung or a leg to them. He could not imagine them limping about without him. But perhaps he had been a tuft of hair, tucked under someone's arms or between their legs, attached, albeit ornamental, not strictly functional, but something permanent, something maintained. Or, he worried to himself, was it more that he had been like their sweat, busily beating up an exertion alongside them, until a cool afternoon air, advancing through a cracked window in the room at just that moment, had dissipated him to steam on its breeze while they languored in each other's touch, unaware. He set the phone down. He picked it up again. He started to text the dealer. He stopped. He sighed. He decided he could not say if they had really been his friends after all, but he knew he could not let that part of himself go.
Great. Thank you so much, JT. And welcome to the world of Flash. Yeah, you're not going to be able to walk away. I think that we will all agree here that Flash is just kind of addictive and we're all in love with it. And it's like that. And I think all the readings tonight really showed that, like what it is that we love about Flash so much, that exquisite sculpting of language and combining it with emotion, and all of it very quick and intense. And it doesn't always translate to a longer story. So Flash is it's a really beautiful thing. And it has a little bit more, I don't know what the word is, latitude than poetry. It gives us a little bit more occasion for story. So it's just perfect. We love it. And I think, like I said, I think everybody reading here tonight was just a great example of all of that, all of those wonderful qualities. And so I want to thank everyone for reading tonight and for your kind attention, those of you listening. And our readers again were Meg Pokrass, Mileva Anastasiadou, Kik Lodge, Swetha Amit, Sudha Balagopal, Mikki Aronoff, Riham Adly, Lucinda Kempe, Andrea Marcusa, and JT. So with that said, enjoy the rest of your evening. If you want to download the Flash, by the way, you can download the chat, because there were some really beautiful comments you might want to look back on. Upward at the top of the chat, there are 3 dots, and you could just hit that and say save chat. You go back at your leisure and say, oh yeah, that person liked my story. So, and it's a good feeling. So thank you for being here, and see you next time. See you next month on the Prose Garden, and drive safely.